Hello and welcome to Newsroom. I am Jawad Tehami and today I am filling in for Mr. Omar Khalid Butt as his beloved father, Dr. Khalid Butt, has passed away, and our thoughts and prayers are with Mr. Omar and his entire family in this difficult time. And we also pray to the Allah Almighty to rest the departed soul in eternal peace and grant him higher ranks in Jannah. We'll move on with today's show. We've got two important developments for discussion in this particular episode. The first relates to the situation in Afghanistan, and the neighboring countries of Afghanistan mechanism meeting was held in Samarkand in Uzbekistan and also the Quadrilateral group on Afghanistan held a meeting in Samarkand on the sidelines of the mechanism also. Now, a high-level delegation, which is led by State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Hina Rabbani Kar, is there, and Ms. Hina Rabbani Kar addressed and spoke about the situation in Afghanistan, has also underscored the importance of coordinated regional approach for promoting peace and stability in Afghanistan. We'll be talking about this particular thing in the first segment, and in the second segment we'll be talking about the economic front, how closer Pakistan is to unlock the tranche of $1.1 billion of the extended fund facility of the IMF program. Regarding the first segment, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that first.
A peaceful neighborhood remained the strategic imperative for Pakistan and Afghanistan, where its location as a bridge between Central and South Asia is central towards achieving the full potential of socio-economic development and regional connectivity. Pakistan has repeatedly urged the world to engage with Afghan Taliban government and lift economic restrictions to help millions of Afghans who are living in deplorable conditions, often described by the United Nations as a humanitarian crisis. The Quadrilateral group on Afghanistan, that includes Pakistan, Iran, Russia and China, met in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, on the sidelines of ministerial meeting of the neighbors of Afghanistan. Leading Pakistani side, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Hina Rabbani Kar underscored the importance for a coordinated regional approach to promote peace and stability in Afghanistan. Amid a catastrophic humanitarian situation in which two-thirds of Afghanistan's population, 28 million people, need humanitarian assistance to survive, and 20 million people are experiencing crisis levels of food insecurity, there is no progress towards provision of fundamental rights. Pakistan has been asserting to the need for practical engagement with Afghanistan's Taliban, but ruled out formal recognition of incumbent Afghan government until they address international concerns over women's rights, inclusive governance, and fulfill their obligations about combating terrorism.
The State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Hina Rabbani Kar, has also underscored the importance of broader engagement with the interim Afghan authorities. Let me bring in my guest on this particular important issue. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Khalid Taimoor Akram. He is Executive Director, Pakistan Research Center for Community with a Shared Future. Mr. Khalid, thank you very much for being with us on Newsroom tonight. We really appreciate your time. How crucial do you think is the coordinated regional approach for promoting peace and stability in Afghanistan?
First of all, thank you very much. Yes, this is a very important topic, and we have seen that post 15th August 2021, the onus of regional peace and the onus of stability in Afghanistan has come on the shoulders of the neighboring and regional countries. In this connection, we have seen Pakistan has taken lots of initiatives, and Pakistan got together all the stakeholders, and we had a OIC conference in Islamabad on the Afghan situation. Side by side, we have seen our brothers in Uzbekistan, the President of Uzbekistan, His Excellency Shaukat Mirziyoyev. He was also very keen in solving the Afghan problems and issues, and he also initiated this quadrilateral platform in which the Uzbek government gathered the Uzbekistan, China, Iran, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan and Turkmenistan. Out of these countries, except for Russia, almost all the countries have borders with Afghanistan, and of course Russia is a major stakeholder in the region. So this platform was created immediately after American and NATO withdrawal from Afghanistan. And we just saw the fourth meeting of this platform, the fourth ministerial meeting of this platform on 13th August and on 13th April. So the background of this meeting is this, that the Afghan situation, especially on the diplomatic front, is getting on stalemate on the international platform.
Mr. Khalid, as you have already mentioned that this particular mechanism was initiated back right after the international troops withdrawal. What has been achieved? 4 meetings of this particular mechanism have happened so far. What substantial things do you think have been achieved so far in this?
I think this platform has achieved many things. One, they have been able to bring Afghanistan on the table. Afghan foreign minister was also included in this meeting, and Afghanistan is now talking to all the neighboring countries. And also post US withdrawal, we have seen the regional trade increasing, because Afghanistan has become now a hub of the regional trade, especially between South and Central Asian connectivity. And we have seen trade coming from Tajikistan to Pakistan via Afghanistan. We are seeing trade coming from Uzbekistan to Pakistan via Afghanistan. So the first what is achieved, the achievement of this platform, is bringing Afghanistan on the table, talking to them on various issues, including terrorism, including trade, including the human rights issues in Afghanistan. Trade, as we have seen, already started, and if you see the UN statistics, the UN itself has pointed out that Afghans in the first year of their rule has earned more than $1.5 billion through transit trade, and this transit trade was between the countries neighboring Afghanistan. They used the Afghan soil for it. Another thing is this, that these countries are constantly talking to Afghanistan for stopping the terrorist fleeing.
That's exactly the point. How crucial is peace and stability and security in Afghanistan for this particular benefit to happen, especially to the Afghan people and to the region overall?
Yes, that was what I was telling you, that these countries, all neighboring countries are equally affected, and we feel that Afghan government has to control the terrorism flow from the Afghan soil to the other countries. We have seen in Pakistan, especially in last few months, we have seen quite an inflow of terrorism from Afghanistan side. We have also seen the fence which was laid with lot of price was being cut by the terrorists at few places. So these are the points which were talked in this meeting.
So how do you think the Afghan authorities can ensure, because there has been again an emphasis by these regional countries during this mechanism, that the Afghan authorities, which are led by the Taliban of course, they have to take concrete measures so that the Afghan soil is not particularly used against any neighboring country, and it doesn't become a ground for harboring terrorism and facilitation of the terrorists?
Yes, if we see the press release which was issued by this after this conference, it clearly says that the importance of strengthening measures of Afghanistan, neighboring countries to combat international terrorism, drug production and smuggling was talked about. So the Afghans were clearly told in this meeting that these 3 things have to be stopped. Afghan government needs to take concrete steps to stop the drug production in their country, to stop the smuggling. We have seen many goods being smuggled from Pakistan to Afghanistan. Similarly, from Central Asia to Afghanistan, the smuggling is very normal. So the Afghan government need to take concrete steps for that. And the most important thing is the Afghan government needs to control the terrorist organization, which we have seen.
These are 2 different things on 2 different dimensions, stopping the smuggling and also dealing with that terrorism threat that is emanating from the Afghan soil. So specifically talking about the first thing that you've just mentioned, curbing smuggling, do you think the Afghan authorities, the Taliban in particular, have got that very capacity to curtail that?
No, at present Afghan government does not have any of these capacities, especially to maintain law and order, because these Taliban in last 20 years they have been fighting with Americans, but although they are jihadists or they call themselves soldiers, but they are not trained people. They are not trained to curb smuggling. They are not trained to curb drug production. They are not trained to curb terrorism. They are not trained to get all kinds of intelligence gathering. So yes, again, as I said, the onus of Afghanistan is now on the regional countries. So many regional countries.
They were very much desirous of taking over the power.
Yeah,
after
they
the
were.
International troops withdrawal.
Yes, they were.
So, but if they didn't
because
have the capacity, so why they were so much eager to take over the power?
Yes, they were very eager because they thought, and their theme was that Afghanistan was occupied by foreign forces. So, and they liberated Afghanistan from the foreign forces. But practically speaking, they did not had any backup plan that what they are going to do after taking power. They did not had the finance planning. They did not had the military planning. They did not had that how to control the law and order. And on 15th August 2021, I consider it as a unique day in the modern day history in which the complete Afghan system collapsed. Their military people, they ran away. Their police people, they ran away. On 16th August 2021, there was no military in Afghanistan. There was no police in Afghanistan. We could see on social media videos that people are playing with helicopters. They are playing with the fighter jets. The children are using helicopters and fighter jets as their playground area.
So what needs to be done?
Capacity
call
building.
For capacity building?
Yes.
How would that be done?
Capacity building can be done. First, it is the will of the Afghan government. It is the will of the Afghan people that till what extent they want to cooperate with the regional countries. Up till now, we have seen that they have shown very limited cooperation towards Pakistan and towards the regional
Why
countries.
is that so? Because given the limited resources over there and the kind of situation Afghanistan is faced with right now, the dire humanitarian and the economic crisis, why don't the regional countries see that sort of cooperation coming from the Afghan authorities?
It has many reasons. The first reason is this, that the Afghan government is waiting since last 1 year plus that international community and United Nations will give them, will legitimize their government. That has not been done. The frustration within the Afghan government is increasing on that. And at the same time, Afghan government expected that the regional countries will accept them and will develop that kind of international mechanism with them. But they do not realize one thing, that all the regional countries are, again, they all are working under the framework of United Nations. So whatever has to be done with consensus in United Nations, and only then it can be implemented.
So do you think they expecting that recognition coming from regional countries or from the United Nations, that legitimacy, despite their violating their promises that they made, especially in the Doha peace deal?
The Doha peace deal is nowhere, because the other party which made the Doha peace deal was not made by the regional countries. It was made basically by the Americans and by the Afghans. But we have seen that Doha peace deal is nowhere now, because the Americans have practically backed out of it, because they are nowhere to be seen. So a Doha peace deal cannot be applicable on the regional countries.
But it was through that deal the Taliban acquired power over there.
Yes, they acquired, but let's see what happened on the other side. The Americans did not fulfill their part, whatever their part was. The Taliban government, they came to power, their assets and their reserves are frozen in USA. So clapping has to be done with both hands. So Afghan Taliban, they also did not fulfill their promises, and the Americans, they also did not fulfill their promises. And eventually, who is in the problem? All the neighboring countries and regional countries, we are in problems. And in this problematic thing, two countries have taken extreme initiatives. One is Pakistan and second is Uzbekistan. Pakistan gathered all the Muslim Ummah countries under OIC, and basically in that conference Pakistan gave out the viewpoint of Afghans. Similarly, Uzbekistan has gathered all the regional countries, and they are gathering again and again. They are doing these gatherings in Uzbekistan just to solve these issues, just to gather these issues. Just yesterday I was seeing the speech of our State Minister, Ms. Hina Rabbani Khar. She made an excellent speech over there. She told the Afghan Foreign Minister that you need to improve human rights, you need to send your girls to schools, only then we can fight your case at the international community.
How do you think it's going to be detrimental? How detrimental it is going to be for the common Afghan people, since the United Nations has announced that they are forced to make that appalling choice whether to continue operations in Afghanistan or not?
It is going to be very, very detrimental, because right now Afghans do not have any banking system, they do not have any proper office mechanism, they do not have any proper economic system, they do not have any financial system. The Afghan passport is like a banana republic passport. It is not practically acceptable in many parts of the world. The Afghan diplomatic missions, they are nowhere to be seen. So right now, as per UN Charter and everything, there is no government in Afghanistan. It is just a piece of land. For them it is, but for us they are our brothers. We need to find a solution for them. We need to make them sit with us. We need to understand them, and we need to make them understand the international community compulsions, and we need to make them understand that all the regional countries can only help you once you fulfill the promises which you have been making.
So what about asking them to do some concrete action against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan when it comes to terrorism emanating from the Afghan soil and a number of attacks that have increased in the recent past in Pakistan? This
is a major point of concern for Pakistan, because we have seen that in last 1 year, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan has again started their terrorist activities in Pakistan, and unfortunately the weapons and the equipment which they are using in these terrorist activities are the same one which the Americans have left behind in Afghanistan. So it means that equipment, that weapons which was 2 years back was being used by the Afghan military, now that is in the hands of the terrorists. So it means that the Afghan government system is very loose. They do not have any kind of accountability for theft or if somebody is selling these to terrorists. So the Afghan government needs to look inwards. They need to enhance their capacity building, and all the regional countries, they have pledged with Afghans that we are ready to help you in your capacity building, but provided you should show willingness and resolve. Willingness is one thing and resolve is another thing. So they need to not only show willingness and resolve, but then they need to implement it also.
Right. Mr. Khalid Taimoor, Akram, Executive Director, Pakistan Research Center for Community with a Shared Future. Thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Newsroom tonight. We really appreciate that. Now we'll be moving to the second segment of the show that relates to how closer Pakistan is now to unlocking that $1.1 billion tranche of the Extended Fund Facility from the IMF. We have seen a couple of developments, as Finance Minister Aqdas has said that the State Bank of Pakistan will receive $300 million from Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and he has also said that the authorities of the United Arab Emirates have given the IMF the confirmation for their support of $1 billion to Pakistan also. We'd also earlier seen Saudi Arabia had also given assurance to the IMF regarding its support of $2 billion to Pakistan. Also, a high-level delegation is in Washington to participate in the spring meetings of the Board of Governors of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. At the same time, we have seen a statement coming from the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva. Let me quote what she had to say. "My hope is that with the goodwill of everyone, with the implementation of what has been already agreed by the Pakistani authorities, we can complete our current program successfully." Let me bring in our guest for this particular segment. We are honored to have been joined on Skype by Dr. Aqdas Afzal. He is a senior economist. Dr. Aqdas Afzal, thank you very much for joining in at Newsroom. We really appreciate your time. After the recent developments, how hopeful are you how do you think how closer Pakistan is to unlocking this tranche of the EFF from IMF?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. I am extremely hopeful, and I will just state for the record that I have been one of the few economists and analysts who have been consistently saying that Pakistan was going to receive this extended fund facility. And I'm very happy to see the progress that has been made thus far. And I think it's only a matter of days now that a staff level agreement will be agreed upon. And then Pakistan will receive the funding once we get board approval from the IMF. And I think that is going to be a matter of 4 to 5 weeks in total.
Right. So, what sort of positive impact do you think it would have in the immediate term on the overall economic outlook of the country?
Well, I think it is basically going to save Pakistan's economy from a very dangerous situation in which this economy has found itself in for the past 12 months. And I mean, we have been staring down the abyss. We have been very, very close to falling down from the precipice. So I think I will say this, and I think some people are not going to like it. I will give this government satisfactory grade in their handling of this present situation with the IMF.
Right. Dr. Aqdas Afzal, as we have seen Finance Minister repeatedly saying that Pakistan was determined to complete this IMF program. There were certain tough conditions, especially in the wake of the devastation that was caused by the floods. Why do you think there was a delay up till now from the IMF? It didn't show the flexibility, especially even in the wake of the floods.
I think there was a general environment of lack of trust between Pakistan and the IMF. And there were certain things that the IMF was expecting the Pakistani government to do, and they did not see progress along those lines. And I think also on the IMF side, there are some internal challenges that are going on. For instance, now many publications like the Economist magazine are now openly saying that the IMF finds itself in a very tough situation when it comes to balancing this tightrope act between the US and China. So I think there are issues on both sides. And that's basically what has led to this very unfortunate delay when it comes to signing the staff level agreement between Pakistan and the IMF.
Right, Dr. Aqdas Afzal, after we get this staff level agreement and this particular tranche of $1.1 billion is unlocked for Pakistan. So when we talk about the macro fiscal or the structure reforms, so which particular area to start with?
I think macro financial reforms are going to be a very, very tough nut to crack, especially in the present environment of political fragmentation, where political parties are at daggers drawn with each other. I think that is going to be a very, very tough thing to do. But I think Pakistan has to go ahead and try to implement reforms. And I think one of the things that I would like this government to look at has to do with reforms in public finance, which basically means that improving our revenue collection. And I think down the line, what this government can try to do is to try to probably bring in some pension reform. Because now a very large chunk of total fiscal outlay is spent on pensions. And I think this is probably high time that this government thinks about, setting up a pension fund.
And how do you think it is going to address the problem, this particular pension fund that you have just mentioned?
Well, successfully setting up a pension fund is going to free up a lot of fiscal space. And that extra fiscal amount can then be spent on the people of this country, on human capital, on health, on education, on clean drinking water, so on and so forth.
Now, how is it going to be different, this particular fund that you are just suggesting, from the previous mechanism that is already in place?
Well, previously we don't really have a mechanism. What the government does is that it basically takes out about 600 billion rupees in order to pay pensions. So what I am suggesting is that we need to look at this very seriously, set up a pension fund so that in 2 or 3 years, these pensions of 600 billion rupees can be paid by the returns on that fund. So that is then actually going to free up the fiscal space, which can that be diverted towards investments on human capital.
Right. Is there any way that you can suggest in order to enhance the or broaden the tax base also at the same time?
Well, again, I think in the present environment, that is going to be very, very tough. But I think one thing that I would like to see is that the FBR, especially when it comes to income tax, they need to broaden the tax net. Because what I have seen from my experience is, that, it's the same people paying more and more tax, every successive year. So what I would like to see is that more people brought into the tax net. And then let's talk about bringing different sectors into the tax net. I mean, so there could be a conversation about instituting an agri-tax, so on and so forth.
Right. When you talk about the kind of political situation we do have here in Pakistan, what ideally happens to be the responsibility of the political leadership, all the stakeholders, when Pakistan is faced with such an economic difficulty?
I think the number one responsibility of all political parties and all stakeholders is to find a way to sit down across the table from each other and hash out their differences. Because the kind of challenges that Pakistan is facing, both on the political front, security front, climate front, and the economic front, are so severe that there is no other way but to sit down and talk to each other.
Right. The government authorities have repeatedly been talking about Charter of Economy. How viable it can be for Pakistan's economic stability?
It is going to be a lifeline for our economy. Because I would just like to remind your audience that in the next 3 years, Pakistan has to retire debt upwards of $77 billion. Now, this is a very huge amount of money. And unless political parties in this country get serious, sit down and talk to each other about debt restructuring, privatization of state-owned enterprises, and the general reforms agenda, I think this huge undertaking is not going to come about without these steps.
Right. Any suggestions regarding enhancing the exports in the immediate terms? Are there any sectors that you can identify the exports from can be enhanced?
Right. So I think when it comes to exports, there could be a targeted effort in trying to get more money from other countries if we can provide certain reliable and affordable Wi-Fi packages to young people so that they can, enhance the freelancing that they are doing. And I think that can really bring in extra amount of money when it comes to exports, because those are also a type of exports.
So that are typically associated with the information technology sector, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
So how huge potential does this particular sector has for the coming years?
I think it has very, very huge potential. And I think easily in the next 2 or 3 years, with focused policies, the amount of money that young men and women of Pakistan can earn can be anywhere between $5 and $10 billion.
Right. So but this was specifically about the IT sector. Other sectors in which the exports could be enhanced in next 5 to 10 years?
I think there's a lot of room for improvement for Pakistan. Pakistan manufacturers can really move along the spectrum of value added. But I think certain focused efforts are going to be required. And for that, we are going to require a very focused and effective industrial policy, which is basically going to tell our exporters what are some of the things that they need to focus on. So I think that conversation also needs to take place.
You already mentioned about the agri-taxes. What's your idea of how should agricultural taxes be imposed?
Well, I am not so sure about the actual mechanism of how these are going to be imposed. I think the first issue is political economic. I mean, is the government going to be able to impart taxation on this entire sector? And once that is agreed on, the mechanisms of how much and how to implement this taxation can be decided on.
Is it viable and doable?
It's absolutely viable and doable.
The entire sector into the tax net.
It's totally viable.
So
it is
are
going
there
to
any obstacles associated with it also? Any hurdles?
Yeah, the biggest obstacles associated with implementing an agri tax are political. Basically, people who exercise a disproportionate amount of influence in this country, call them agri-elites, if you will, are they going to allow us to implement these taxes?
So how is it going to be done? How is it done in other countries of the world?
It's generally done in the same way it's done with respect to income tax. So whatever income is being made by selling certain agricultural commodities, they are going to come under the purview of the income tax.
Right. Dr. Aqdas Afzal, one last question regarding how to attract foreign direct investment in Pakistan. How crucial is political stability in Pakistan for attracting foreign direct investment?
I think political stability is extremely important, not only for attracting foreign direct investment, but for stabilizing the economy as it is right now. Because whoever is looking at Pakistan from abroad and they see the kind of political instability and political chaos that is going on right now, I think it does not make Pakistan look very attractive to them. I think it's a very, very important thing that Pakistan is able to stabilize its politics so that we can then subsequently stabilize our economy. And that is then going to help with attracting more foreign direct investment.
Right to Dr. Aqdas Afzal, Senior Economist, joining us on Skype. Thank you very much for being with us on Newsroom. I would really appreciate your time. And now it's time to include a couple of news items in the show. Also, a 17-year-old elephant named Noor Jahan in Karachi Zoo is in critical condition. She's already an intensive care patient and her condition worsened after she reportedly fell into a pond. Now the international vet experts are busy in providing her the treatment. At the same time, we have seen Prime Minister Special Assistant Mr. Salman Sufi saying that the government is constantly in touch with the zoo administration and they are working hard to enable her to stand again. Now the team at Newsroom also wishes a speedy recovery. In the second news item, as the Pakistan celebrates the Golden Jubilee of the adoption of 1973 Constitution, the government has authorized the State Bank of Pakistan to issue a commemorative coin of 50 rupees. Now this coin will be issued through the exchange counters of all the field offices of the State Bank of Pakistan Banking Services Corporation from April the 14th. And when we specifically talk about the dimensions of this coin, it is a round shaped coin and it is around 30 millimeters and it carries a weight of 13.5 grams, has copper 75% in it, and nickel up to 25% in it. And with that, we come to the end of today's newsroom. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.